The tax-free savings account is the most important savings tool in Canada when you enter retirement. And over the last 20 years of making retirement plans for Canadians, those without a TFSA have been in a much worse position. So in this video, I want to go through two scenarios where one client has built up a TFSA and the other hasn't, and show you just how costly this can be for your retirement. When it comes to retirement planning, most of us focus on one of two accounts, the RSP or the TFSA. And depending on what your income is, the RSP may make more sense. And for most of us, we put all of our eggs in one basket, not focusing on the tax-free savings account. One of the problems we see if you don't have a funded TFSA in retirement is that the majority, if not all of your income is going to be taxable. And that's the purpose of this video, is to show you don't put all your eggs in the one basket, because the tax-free savings account is a hugely important account as you enter into retirement. It gives you flexibility around taxable income and non-taxable income. And I get it. If you're ramping up for retirement and you're in your best earning years, you want to take advantage of the RSP for the tax breaks. And you definitely still want to focus on the RSP. Just don't forget about the tax-free savings account and the benefits that it has down the road for you. And that's where the ebbs and flows of a plan have to work on benefits pre-retirement and post-retirement. So let's jump into the scenarios and see what they look like. So here we have Mr. YouTube. He's built up an RRSP of $560,000, and we put his government benefits both starting at 65, and we put his CPP, his Canadian pension plan, at 75% and 100% for his old age security. He's been in Canada his whole life. So as we look at the plan itself, I want to look at a few things. A, flexibility, and B, total income. So in this case, Mr. YouTube is 65 years old. We've mapped this out to age 90. And you can see we've just let his CPP, old age security, and his RIF account just naturally draw out to get to zero by the time he turns age 90. And you can see the real income, $44,474. So if Mr. YouTube didn't build up a TFSA, this is what his income would be like in retirement. Now, for many of you, this might look great. You might think, hey, if I could generate $45,000 a year after tax adjusted to inflation, that's not a bad retirement. We could ladder that, maybe get it up to closer to 50 in the go-go years, and have a pretty good retirement. The problem is, in this plan with no TFSA, is there's no flexibility. So if we jump back into this plan and say, well, what happens if Mr. YouTube needed to buy a new vehicle for $20,000 in 5 years, or put a new roof on? So currently, if we look at Mr. YouTube's taxable income, it's very level, and his total tax bill is also very level through retirement because everything's coming in pretty evenly. Now again, there's very little flexibility. So if he had that one-time expense of say $20,000 at age 70, how does that affect his plan? So you can see here we've put in an additional expense of $20,000 at age 70, and you can see in his total tax has gone from just under $6,000 a year up to close to $15,000 a year. And he's pulling much more, $61,408, out of his RIF account. And the reason for that is because he had this one-time expense and he doesn't have any other resource to pull from other than his RIF, which is going to drive up his taxable income, which is going to create a lot more tax for him. In this case, almost $10,000. Again, we can see his marginal tax rate is 28%. So $20,000 coming out, he's going to pay about $6,000 or $7,000 more in tax. Again, he's lost some credits and other things along there, meaning that his tax bill is a lot more money than he needs it to be. Now we might think, okay, well, at least he can manage this $20,000. How does that affect his overall income? And if I go to sustainability spending, we can see that it drops down to $43,635, or about $840 less every single year adjusted to inflation through retirement. So it's quite substantial on what this has for an impact for its overall income through retirement. Now, what happened if Mr. YouTube built up just a bit of a TFSA? Instead of focusing 100% on his RSP over the years, he started to chip away at a TFSA and built up a bit of a nest egg at 65. So in this scenario, I've assumed he's built up a $50,000 TFSA account and a $500,000 RSP. Now, in the last scenario, we had the RSP at 560, so total assets at 560. Now we have it at 550. And I did the difference because if they put money into an RSP, they're getting a bit of a tax break and more money to invest. So I've tried to adjust it slightly around 20% to allow for that difference. So there's a bit less assets to begin with, but that's because some has gone into the tax-free savings account. So we can see here $500,000 in the RSP, $50,000 in the TFSA account. Now, if we go back to a sustainability, how much income could Mr. YouTube generate? It's slightly more, $44,666. Now, this is only a couple $100 more per year. It's not substantial, but it is a little bit more. But what I want to look at here is he's still taking CPP at 65, old age security at 65, and he's drawing out of his RSP and TFSA in a way that we typically see Canadians do it, which is some RSP, typically near the minimum, and then top it up with the TFSA. The problem with this is, although he's built a $50,000 TFSA account, you can see by the time he's 73, he's wiped that account out. So what happens at 75, 80? When he has that large expense again, guess what? He's going to have to pull from his RSP. And you might say, Adam, well, let's draw this down slower, which means we're going to have to take more out of the RIF account, which many of you are hesitant to do, and I get it. And I'll show you that here in a second and how that works and why that works. Now, again, in the first 7 to 10 years of retirement, Mr. YouTube is in a much better position here. He has TFSA money, he's paying less tax overall, he's got a bit more income. There's flexibility in that 10 years. So the TFSA account has helped Mr. YouTube here, but I think he needs to extend it a little bit further. So how do we do that and how do we structure that in the best way possible? So by creating a bit of an RSP meltdown here, you can see instead of letting the program kind of generate, about $15,000, $20,000, $22,000 out every year, we're going to force a bit more money out. So $3,000 gross every month, $36,000 a year. And you can see the TFSA account is drawn down much slower. In fact, for the first 10 years, there's some money going into the account. Now, we could create a bit of a laddered income strategy here and offset that and create some proper strategy here. I just want to focus on the TFSA because, again, it is the most powerful tool you need to have as you enter retirement. You can see in this case that the TFSA account is well funded right through retirement. In fact, it hits over $100,000 into their 70s. And so if they have that one-time expense, a medical emergency, whatever it is, they have that money that they can draw on from a tax-free basis. So if we look at that same example where we have a $20,000 expense at age 70, you can see Mr. YouTube's total tax bill has not gone up at all. His taxable income has not gone up at all. All we've done is depleted the TFSA account a little bit more than we would have otherwise, $17,597 in this case. But again, he still has a great TFSA account through the rest of retirement, creating and giving him that flexibility. So a few tips as you ramp up for retirement, or if you're already in retirement, how to utilize your TFSA account. Use it as a lever account. And what I mean by a lever account is if you need a little bit more money, pull it from there. If you don't, put it back into there. Just like Mr. YouTube, in the first 7-8 years of retirement, he was pulling money out of his RIF more than he actually was spending. Thus, he was allocating or contributing a little bit into his tax-free savings account, which gave it a bigger amount as he got later in life into his 70s and 80s, again, creating that flexibility. So what you want to do is you want to create tax planning around the RIF account. What's the most optimal amount? Combine that again. You have to look at these all combined together. CPP, old age security, RIF account, any type of taxable income needs to be looked at together. And then if you need a bit more money, pull from a non-reg, or in this case, a tax-free savings account. If you've maxed out your tax-free savings account, again, look to a non-registered account as well. But your tax-free savings account is going to give you the most flexibility and most tax-efficient income as you walk through retirement. The last scenario I want to show you here is the same thing. So again, RSP meltdown here, TFSA, but of delayed CPP or QPP for some of you, all the way till age 70. And you can see the income jumped substantially from about $44,500 up to $45,900. So close to $1,500 more every year adjusted to inflation after tax. Again, you can create that flexibility, but you'll see that TFSA account is intact through retirement, giving you that flexibility. So lots of layers in tax planning here, but around the TFSA, it's super important that you start funding that if you haven't already in the 5 to 10 years leading up to retirement. Make sure you have a bit of a nest egg. Now, ideally you have about $30,000 or more in your TFSA account. I know that's going to be a challenge for many of you as you build up for retirement. Again, do all you can to start building that tool up. Again, that's an investment that grows tax-free, and you can pull that money out tax-free in retirement as you need it. The last point I want to make is if you're already in retirement and you're sitting there saying, Adam, this sounds great, but I'm in retirement and I don't have a tax-free savings account, or maybe I'm months away from retiring and I don't have a tax-free savings account. talk to your financial planner, because typically you can pull a bit more out of your RSP or your RIF account and start topping up your TFSA in a tax efficient manner. Again, sometimes delaying that CPP allows you to do that. We do that with a lot of clients. So you can create that flexibility later. It's much more difficult, but it is possible. And again, you don't want to sacrifice more tax dollars to top up your TFSA. That doesn't make sense. But for many of you, there is a strategy that can be employed to start building up a TFSA account to give you that flexibility for the rest of your retirement. So don't assume because you don't have a tax-free savings and you're either retired or very close to retirement, it doesn't mean it can't be done. It's more challenging, but again, work with your financial planner to get help with that. If you need help or if your financial planner can't work with you on that, reach out to our office. We offer fee-for-service retirement plans for Canadians coast to coast. You can learn more all about our services, pricing, sample plan, all of it on our website, parallelwealth.com/planning.